How biblical is this event that the Antichrist will rise from the dead? Which will be his license, para worshipped by all mankind? That will push the countries around the world to abandon their government and religion, and submit to the one world government and one world religion of this monster. This is the true picture of the Antichrist. The End of the World Part 5, The Image of the Beast, Antichrist. How biblical is it that the Antichrist will die and rise again? Revelation chapter 13 verse 3 says, "One of the heads of the monster seemed to have a wound that almost killed it, but it healed. The whole world was amazed at what happened, and they followed suit to the beast." One of the puzzles here is why the world was amazed at the scenario of one on the head of the beast and was wounded almost to death but it is cured. The question is, why was the whole world amazed at what happened to the monster? What is so amazing about the beast's wound? Who suddenly recovered? And the result was that the whole world followed and worshipped this beast. Break down other interpretations of those points to the end times of the beast's wounded unto dead. Some interpret that it is a system and not a person. It is said to symbolize of the Roman Empire when the Roman Empire fell in 476 AD. And the Roman Empire returned to 7 years of tribulation. There are those who they will say that this is Germany's Nazi systems that died in the impact of World War II and that Germany will rise again in 7 years of tribulation. But the majority of Bible scholars believe that this is the Antichrist who died and rose again. This is a person, not a system. The reason is the correct hermeneutics. Here in Revelation chapter 13, the wounded unto death of the beast is mentioned 3 times. In verse 3, verse 12 and 14, if we read verse 12, Revelation chapter 13 verse 12, he forced himself to worship the beast who was seriously wounded but recovered. Another clue in that verse is that the monster that was seriously injured will be worshipped by all the people in the world. When to worship, this refers to the person, not the system. So it is clear that the monster referred to here is not a system but a person who has been seriously injured. He said people will try to worship him. Another proof is the Antichrist himself referred to here, and we can read in verse 14. Revelation chapter 13 verse 14, he persuaded the people to make an image of the first beast that was wounded by the sword but recovered. The picture of the monster that is mentioned here is that man himself is the Antichrist. Because there is nothing in the sense that can be described or the system but the person who is our object. So it is clear in that verse that the first beast who was mortally wounded is referring to the Antichrist himself. Now the question, how do we know that the Antichrist will die? What does it mean that he was wounded almost to death, and to the extreme do people worship him, after the wound is healed? The death of the Antichrist is made more clear in Revelation chapter 17-8 says in that verse, "The beast which you saw was alive at first, but is now dead. It will rise again from the abyss and will be completely destroyed." So, it is clear from that verse that the beast was alive at first, but died and then reappeared from the cliff very deep. If the monster dies and comes back to life, it is clear that the death and resurrection of the Antichrist is biblical. Nah, it's the Bible. If you read the verse, the beast is said to reappear from the abyss. He will rise again from the cliff very deep. If we read it in Tagalog English, bottomless pit or abyss, so that Antichrist when he dies, he will rise again from the abyss. So the soul of the monster coming out here will come from the bottomless pit or the abyss. Is this abyss hell? As far as Bible doctrine concern, according to the Bible, there are 3 types of hell that is said in the Bible. The sad translated from in the Greek to English Bible, it became just one word called here. This is hell, but in the original translation of the Greek there are 3 types of hell. It is in the Greek words Hades, Tartarus and Gehenna. First, Hades is called the world of the dead. Luke chapter 16 verse 23, Hades was mentioned by Jesus in the historian of the rich man and Lazarus, which is written in Luke chapter 16 verse 23. Hades is temporary detention who are not safe or unbelievers. Second is Tartarus, 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 4, for angels who sin, or the demons imprisoned here. This is written in 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 4. Tartarus is the prison of rebellious angels, or here are the demons who minion of Satan. That's why Tartarus is also called hell. Now the third is Gehenna, and this is what is said in Revelation chapter 19 verse 20, see lake of fire. This is future hell. No one has been here yet, because it is the final destination of Satan, of the fallen angels and bad people or unbelievers. According to History.org, Tartarus is described as a dark abyss that is used of a prison. So Tartarus in Greek has the same meaning. This is bottomless pit, which is said meaning if it comes from bottomless pit will join the body of the Antichrist. Probably a demon will join the body of the Antichrist. For it to live again. Meaning, the mystery here is that the soul of the Antichrist is already dead and in Hades, but a spirit will revive the body of the Antichrist. Now the question is, which falling angel that will merge from the bottomless pit will merge with the body of the Antichrist? Well, beloved ones, we have the same answer to that question. This is none other than Satan. We know that even Satan has long dreamed of rule the whole world. Even then he wanted to be incarnated like Jesus. And this is probably his chance before him cast into hell. But we should have a clear Bible verse that proves that Satan is really the one who will join the Antichrist's body. Now, let's investigate. It says in Revelation chapter 20 verse 2, he seized the dragon, the old serpent who is none other than the devil or Satan, and bound it for 1,000 years. In the book of Revelation, when the dragon Lucifer is said to be a falling angel. Another verse that symbolizes Satan. Revelation chapter 12 verse 3, another sign appeared in heaven, a great red dragon. It had 7 heads and 10 horns, and each head has a crown. The question is, why does Satan the dragon have 7 heads and also 7 horns like the Antichrist? 7 heads and 10 horns are also the same as the beast. So that means Antichrist and Satan can be united. Remember, the 7 heads and 10 horns symbolize the one world government. Does that mean that if Satan has 7 heads and 10 horns, could he be the real leader of the future one world government? And does this mean that the second 3.5 years in life nor Antichrist, Satan himself will rule the one world government? In the very body of Antichrist. That means in the first 3.5 years the body of Antichrist is the body of Antichrist himself. And after the resurrection, it is no longer him, but it is Satan himself, the inside of Antichrist. That question can still be answered by the Bible. Remember, the Bible is our most basic or final authority because it is inspired or breathed by our God and has life. In Revelation chapter 17 verse 9, understanding and justice are needed here. The 7 heads. It also describes 7 kings. 5 of them have fallen, 1 is still reigning, and the last is yet to come. When he comes, he will only reign for a short time. And the beast that once lived but is no more is one of the 7 kings and will be 8th. He will be destroyed. It says in the first verse that understanding and wisdom are needed here. So in this study, please listen, we are good. It says here the 7 heads also describes the 7 kings. So let's pause here first. So we studied in part 4 this list of 7 heads representing the 7 world empires that conquered the world and gave the nation of Israel a headache. Said here 5 have fallen, 1 still reigns. And the last is coming. Remember that Apostle John wrote the book of Revelation 95 AD during the Roman Empire. So the angel told him that the 5 had fallen. These are the 1, Egyptian Empire, Assyrian Empire, Babylonian Empire, Medo-Persian Empire and Greek Empire. 5 of them fell in the time of John. The one that still reigns is still the reign of the Roman Empire. In the time of John. And the 7th is coming. The 7th here, as we studied in part 4, is possibly the New World Order or the one world government that is now being promoted by secret societies in our time. And this New World Order has 10 leaders. The democratic form of government is dominated by the Antichrist. It says here in Revelation chapter 17 verse 9, when he comes, he will reign for a short time. And what is referred to here is the life of the Antichrist up to the first 3.5 years only. Because he will die after 3.5 years. Said there the beast that once lived but is no more is one of the 7 kings and will be the 8th. He will be destroyed. So said here beast that died was one of the 7 kings and he was the 8th. It is clear in that verse that the Antichrist himself is referred to who has died, but he will be the eighth. So it means that after the resurrection of the Antichrist, he will no longer be the same person, but a different person will join him. And this is none other than the dragon Satan or Lucifer. Satan has become human in the body of the Antichrist, and he is said to be the eighth. Because he is the eighth means in the first 3.5 years, this is the real picture of the monster. Satan himself. That's why the dragon is also having 7 heads and 10 horns indicates that Satan is really the real Antichrist here. So the death of the Antichrist is evident. He will be resurrected in the person of Satan himself. Now we have proven hermeneutics verse by verse that death is after life again. The Antichrist is very biblical. And Satan is the true image of the beast. Now let's continue reading Revelation verse 4. All people worshipped the dragon because it gave its power to the beast. They also worshipped the beast. Who can be like that? To the monster. Who can stand against him? In that verse, because the death and resurrection of the Antichrist is trending all over the world. All the people of the world and the religion of the world will worship him. Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, and other traditions throughout world, they will completely abandon the tradition of their belief. Because the whole world has witnessed the fake resurrection of Antichrist. And people's beliefs around the world about God will be changed because of the resurrection of the Antichrist. So it says here, who can be like the beast, who can fight him, they say. This phenomenon is the first time in world history. People how he was buried, the one who was considered the hero of the whole world came back to life during the 7 years of tribulation. But that's like us knows this prophecy. Because we have clearly studied in the Bible, verse by verse the resurrection of the Antichrist is very biblical is a fake and untrue. The Antichrist really died and the one living in him is Satan. It says in Hebrews chapter 9:27, destined to people that they will die once and then the judgment. The Bible is not a liar, it is clear from that verse, it will really be faced he is to God for judgment. So what really happened was that the Antichrist really died. But when he came back to life, he was no longer the Antichrist, he only possessed by the substance of Lucifer. Now it says in verse 5 that the beast was allowed to boast, to blaspheme God. It says here that it was allowed. God really can be proud and arrogant and belittle God. Daniel chapter 7 verse 8 says, this horn had eyes like a man and a mouth who speaks with great arrogance. So what John says also harmonizes with what Daniel says that the Antichrist will speak blasphemy. What is the possible blasphemy that this Antichrist will say? Well, because his lifestyle is so trending again, he will rebuke it to the whole world that he is the true God. And he will shout it in the third temple of Jerusalem. He will always say that the Jesus Christ we know is a fake and not true. They say that the apostles are just making up. It is not true that Jesus was resurrected, because no one saw it before. But his apostles said nothing. And he will probably deceive the whole world that the Bible is not true either. It is only man-made. He will boast of his life that no one can do unless you are Yahweh or God. The evidence is enough for the whole world to see how he was killed, how he was buried and how he lived. That is probably his message of his resurrection and he will teach it to the whole world. It is also said in that verse, to reign for 40 years 2 days. 42 months is equal to 3.5 years. The question is, what 3.5 years are mentioned here? That first 3.5 years is that second 3.5 years. And if we read it in Revelation chapter 13 verse 5, and there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power given was given unto him. To continue 42 months. Said here, power was given. Meaning he was given the power even then, in 3.5 years and in the middle of 7 years it said there. Unto him to continue 42 months. To continue means another 42 months or another 3.5 years that is referred to here. So it is clear that this monster has risen from in the sea for the first 3.5 years. And he was wounded and healed in the middle of 7 years. And he said to continue his power and that's 3.5 years left. Because it says to continue. So it is clear that the death is the resurrection of the Antichrist will happen in the middle of the 7 years of tribulation. After 3.5 years Satan will rule the whole world with his puppet, which is Antichrist. The next verse will enter the second part of the 7 years of tribulation. The blasphemy of the Antichrist we will see in the following verses. Revelation chapter 13 verse 6 to 7. He opened his mouth to speak blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name and his home as well as those who dwell in heaven. He was also allowed to wage war to the saints and conquer them. So in that verse there are two scenarios. It is blasphemy against God and war with God's elect. One of the wars with God's elect is none other than the nation of Israel in this age. At this time the true believers that God is the so-called revolution saints. These are the citizens of the Jews or the nation of Israel and new Christians who have been born again period of 7 years of tribulation. Those who were raptured are those who received Jesus through free salvation. So after rapture, the only Jews and the unbelievers. During the tribulation there will still be preachers of the word of God. Those are 144,000 and those are 2 witnesses. And we will discuss that in part 8. After 3.5 years, this is where the persecutions will begin for those who do not want the beast or accept its brand. So the first thing he will attack is the nation of Israel. He can prioritize it because he will enthrone the third temple of Israel. During the attack of the Antichrist is what our Lord Jesus says that those in Judea should flee to the mountains. The ones on the roof is not to bother to get anything inside the house, and those who are in the field should not go home to get a cloak. On that day poor pregnant and lactating women, pray that your escape will not be in the winter or on the Sabbath. That's it, advice of the Lord Jesus to the Jews he was talking to and the disciples. That's the time of Antichrist when he will desecrate the temple. The instruction to them to flee, because the Antichrist is about to conquer the nation of Israel. More on this on episode 11. After he has overthrown the defense of Israel, he will go to Jerusalem to the third temple and there he will desecrate the temple. This is where the great tribulation begins, our Lord Jesus says in Matthew chapter 24. Now let's go to verse 11 in Revelation chapter 13 verse 11. I saw a beast appear in earth. It has 2 horns like the horns of a young lamb, but its voice is like the voice of a dragon. In that verse there is a second monster mentioned in the Bible. That second monster appeared from the ground. The beast looks like a lamb, but that's his voice dragon. What does this symbol mean? According to BibleRef.com, this beast was rising from the earth. Many understand this to be a reference to Israel. So this monster came from the country of Israel. Now why in Israel? The beast is from the earth. When it comes from the earth it means it is localized, it is a country. Unlike the first monster, it came from the sea and was studied in part 4 when from the sea it is the languages, nations, kings means Gentile nations. This beast comes from the earth which symbolizes a country, and that's why Bible scholars say that this is the nation of Israel. Because the beast is a lamb, when it is a lamb it symbolizes sacrificial lamb to the Jews. This is the main cost of their religion, the lamb. That is why the second beast comes from Israel. By this interpretation, the second beast is apparently a Jew who may present himself as Israel's Messiah. He is a false Messiah whose speech is satanic. And it was also said here, both beasts are opposed to Christ, but the second beast appears to assume the role of Christ, the Lamb of God. So BibleRef.com says that this beast is a Jew because when it is said to be a lamb it symbolizes a Messiah. So in the eyes of the Jews it is the Messiah. So that means the second beast is a religious figure. Religious figure because he appears like a lamb. When the symbol is a lamb, it is a figure of holiness. Respected because he is a religious leader. But his teaching is satanic teaching. Because his voice is the voice of a dragon. So does it appear that there are 2 antichrists? Shouldn't there be only one antichrist? We will find out in the next verses. Revelation chapter 13 verses 12 to 14. He used all the power of the first beast to enforce his will. He forced all the people on earth to worship the first monster who was seriously injured but recovered. Wonders are amazing made by the second beast. He rained fire from heaven, and the people witnessed it. He deceived all the people of the earth through the wonders he did in the presence of the first beast. He persuaded the people to make a picture of the first beast who was wounded by the sword but lived. In that verse is the second monster who seems to be the executive secretary of the Antichrist. She the one who executes the will of the first beast. Another thing the second beast will do is that it will show miracles and wonders. He rained fire from heaven and people witnessed it. It says here that all the people of the world will be deceived by the second beast. If the death and resurrection of the first beast is trending in the world, fire coming down from heaven will be trending in whole world to be made by the second monster. Now let's continue reading. Revelation chapter 13 verses 14 to 15. He deceived all the people of the earth by the wonders he did in the presence of the first beast. He encouraged people to make a picture of the first beast wounded by the sword but alive. He was also allowed to breathe life into the image of the first beast. Therefore the image spoke and it killed all who did not want to worship him. First he sent down fire from heaven. Second is the Antichrist also commanded him to give life to the image of the first beast. So it was able to speak and kill all those who didn't want to worship him. When the computer was not yet fashionable, it was a miracle to the end times teachers of the day. But in our time now this is possible through hologram technologies, or those old school projectors or televisions. Apostle John in 95 AD. Apostle John did not know that it was a hologram or LCD, because the computer was still unknown at this time. But we are in the era of modern technology. It is possible to do it now. We will no longer think that this is a miracle. In other words, it can be explained by modern technology or science. Next verse in Revelation chapter 13 verses 16 to 18. The second beast forcibly seals all people in their right hand or forehead, whether they are great or lowly, rich or poor, slave or free. And no one can sell or buy unless they have marked the name of the beast or the number corresponding to that name. Wisdom is needed here. Anyone wise can know the meaning of the number of the beast, because it is the number of a man. The number is 666. 666. That's what the verse says, forced to be stamped on their right hand or on their forehead, be they rich or poor, great or humble, means all people. The only puzzle here is no one can sell or buy if you don't have the mark of the beast's name or the number corresponding to it. And the equivalent of the name of monster is 666. That's the clue of the second monster. Now that we know the basic characteristics of the second beast, we can answer the clue is whether this monster is also Antichrist or not. For us to know the name of the second beast in the Bible, we will still look for answer, because the Bible is still our final authority. We can read this in Revelation chapter 19 verse 20. The beast was captured, as well as the false prophet who did wonders before the beast to deceive the people who had the mark of the beast and worshipped his image. The monster and the false prophet was thrown alive into the lake of fire burning with brimstone. Or is he the second beast that also makes a sign and image of the beast to worship it? Brothers and sisters, the answer is that the second beast is the false prophet. Jesus Christ said correctly in Matthew chapter 24 verse 24, for there will appear false Christs and false prophets. They will show those wonderful miracles and wonders to mislead, if possible, even God's elect. It is clear from that verse that they are together appear. So if the Antichrist is the beginning of the 7 years of tribulation, the false prophet will also begin the 7 years of tribulation. The 3.5 years after the death and resurrection of the Antichrist, here it is implied that he will command his partner, who is a false prophet, who made a picture of him so that he could be worshipped, and tried to impress all the people in the world with 666. The second 3.5 years were the most worst that will happen to all mankind. Because here is what is called the Great Tribulation. This is a combination of God's anger and anger of Antichrist worldwide. Many will die. That's why Jesus said if it is not shortened there will be no one left. But for the sake of the people, Israel is his chosen one, that will be shortened. This is within the remaining 3.5 years. God's wrath will destroy the climate of the whole world. The sun will turn red, the world's cycle will slow down, severe earthquakes, locusts, water and oceans will turn to blood. Then money, that's the anger of the Antichrist. He will kill the tribulation saints. These are the Jews and the new Christians of this time. I believe during the 7 years of tribulation. But they were not left in the rapture. But they are newly converted Christians in this era. Their salvation is not to be branded, rather martyrdom is the way of their salvation. At the end of 7 years, the descent of the real Christ himself will kill the Antichrist and the false prophet. It says that these two were thrown alive into the lake of fire burning with brimstone. These two monsters are the first people in Gehenna of hell. The two of them will be thrown into the lake of fire. The two of them will be ahead of Satan. That's the whole story of the Antichrist during the 7 years of tribulation according to the Bible. Now the question, how likely is it that the second beast will begin in Israel? How likely is it that you won't be able to buy if you don't have a 666 brand? Because that question is a future events that we cannot avoid looking at current events and the piracy theory. So just a disclaimer. My words are conspiracy theories are just based on mine analysis and patching of information that I gathered from those book of experts. You still have to decide if you believe it or not. As I said in part 4, we may be dogmatic in Bible prophecy. But when it comes to piracy theory, you be the judge. How much are you? Is it possible that the second beast will begin in Israel? This is also a current event recently that a Jew came out just last month. Many people are saying that this is the Messiah. There are many Jews who are expecting, especially the rabbi, who say it is okay that will introduce themselves as their messiahs. So it can be this year or next year. As long as they say in today's time or in our current generation, it is possible to introduce their Messiah. Now, brothers and sisters, there are videos circulating on YouTube or on the internet showing that there are messiahs has introduced itself in our time today. There is a young rabbi today who is so famous in Jerusalem that he is really respected by many Jews and rabbis. So many people look up to him now in Israel. He is called the Yanuka, Rav Shlomo Yehuda. Table Yanuka said to the Jews, this is a person who appears once every generation. For every 70 to 100 years. The Yanuka for the Jews, it is very easy to come out. When it is said Yanuka, he memorized the Torah or that scripture. He knows very well that the Torah cannot be understood by other rabbi or Jews. As in master, he mastered the Torah. Whatever you ask him about the Torah, he can answer. Because of the well-being he came to Torah. If we look at it when it comes to the Torah, if we look at it, many Jews really confuse him because he is very good when it comes to writing. We can see that even though Rabbi is young, he is already looked up to by the high and really good that Rabbi. That only shows that he is respected despite the fact that he is still young. We can see in that video that they are still kissing this Yanuka's hand. They really listen to his teachings. Recently a rabbi from New York who visited Israel only for this Yanuka. According to some sources this Rabbi went to bless Yanuka. So that's really the admiration of man here in this Yanuka. Really respected and respected. Everywhere he goes he is confused. All his teachings, many of them people and Jews come to listen to him because of his talent. It is said that this is what is happening in the Jewish community that is endorsed by this young man rabbi according to the top leading rabbi today in Israel. So it is only in our time that the rabbi came out of Israel. So in our time now this Yanuka came out. So young and so good. Right now we can really see that he is a rock star or a superstar when he comes to Jerusalem. A lot of people really followed him wherever he went. He was really confused. Now this young rabbi is also said that he has a miracle to do. Some say that this Yanuka has cured people of this disease. And he has many other miracles to different people. What can we say about this Yanuka? We know that there is only one true Messiah but the Lord Jesus. You know that the Jews do not believe that Jesus is the true God. They do not believe that Jesus is the real Christ. Still waiting, they are still now. We cannot blame them if there are some Jews who believe that he is the Messiah. Because not all Jews believe that he is the Messiah. That's why I want to announce this to you, because it proves that the Antichrist has come very close and can feel it. Christians all over the world, and if the Antichrist is coming soon, Rapture can happen in our time now, and the 7 years will begin of tribulation. Now if you ask me, he is not the Antichrist. Because the Antichrist is a Gentile. Remember, the first monster is from the sea and means this is a Gentile world government. As I said in part 4. Earlier we studied the second beast or lie prophet will come from Israel. Sir, I doubt this. Isn't this Yanuka the false prophet? Couldn't he be the second monster? Because he fits perfectly with what the prophecy we are studying says. Well, if Israel recognizes this Yanuka as their Messiah, he is perhaps the one who will endorse Israel, will introduce the Antichrist. He will deceive the nation of Israel, and he will believe that the Messiah really is Antichrist. And he is only a preparer for the true Messiah. Like John the Baptist, the Jews thought he was the Christ, that John said Baptist that he is only a preparer of the true Messiahs. So if Jesus Christ has a real John the Baptist, so does the Antichrist have. He is also a false prophet respected by the Jews. So it turns out that he is the fake Juan Bautista in the future. Many teach the second, they say the Saint Pope is a monster. At first that was my belief as well. But there is a conflicting verse that the second is not really the Holy Pope in Rome monster. We will discuss that in part 7. The Jews will not be deceived if they are deceived, just like the Roman Catholics. But both of them Jew or a rabbi from their Judaism religion. And secondly, you cannot be accepted as a Christian if you do not have Jewish blood. Believe I with Jewish blood am the false prophet. How likely is it that you won't be able to buy if you don't have a 666 brand? Said in Revelation chapter 13 verse 16 to 17, he also forced everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on his right hand or on his forehead, so that no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of Hos name. Here the whole world says forcefully accepted the mark of the beast, but on the forehead or on the right hand. No one could buy or sell unless you have 1. The mark. 2. The name of the beast. 3. The number of his name. So are you familiar with this system? Isn't this a credit card system? In the credit card system, you know that your ATM must be the name of the credit card and account number. Science can now explain this that Apostle John did not understand in 95 AD. This is modern banking system. Now there are conspiracy theories here. As I showed you in part 4, I have a book titled The Last Dictator. These are books of whistleblowers who are members of secret societies that expose the plan of the New World Order or One World Government that they teach mastermind is the United Nation. On page 251 you will see the title The Coming Cashless Society. As I mentioned in part 4, one of the agenda of the New World Order is for us to have an one world currency. One of the implementations of the one world banking system is cashless transaction, that's the money. Today this organization is governed by the new International Economic Order. And in this book, that army connection is revealed, the United Nations in the Economic Order. It says here, we are the members of the UN. Solemnly proclaim our united determination to work urgently for the establishment of a new international economic order. In this book, there is a whistleblower who is a monetary expert who attends a conference of international bankers who are already planning a total cashless society. Said here, this whistleblower revealed elite international bankers is making a plan that all the money in the world, paper money, coins and checks, will not be used or obsolete. And all the commerce will be implemented through digital marks, digital codes or numbers. We already know that it is now an electronic funds transfer system. If you notice, which is already happening in our time, when we order from Shopee or Lazada, can we pay through GCash or Paymaya or those apps from the bank? Right, send money, door to door is no longer true. Going to the bank or Palawan to Cebuana Luye. But either GCash or Paymaya and many more apps or crypto emerging today. If you buy in another country, most of the payment is through PayPal. But there are more advanced ones. Here they are cryptocurrency. These cryptos are, for example, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Binance Coin, USDT Coin. That's why the online platform is so popular today, Binance, for paying online instead of cash. That's called the electronic funds transfer system. Computer scientists say here creates a master plan to assign numbers to every individual person in the world. Numbers can be exceeded for trading, buying and selling. The computer scientist's plan to simply assign unique numbers to people is a good one. That's the identity for his online money bank, so that it can be synchronized more safely. The problem is that credit cards are stolen, online banking has been hacked. Because there are many hackers online, because if you do online banking nowadays, your account can be hacked. Can be withdrawn hackers your money. Online theft is also cashless. Now this is where the implantable biochip piracy theory comes in. This is the device as small as a grain of rice to inject it into the right side of a person's hand. This day will be the microchip as the accessibility of those credit cards that can be stolen. When the biochip itself is in your body, it won't steal from you, and you won't have the stress of hiding it of your ATM. If every person has a number and instead of a credit card and this storage device is already placed in your body, it is no longer just steal from you. A good example is this GCash QR code. Instead of typing your cell phone number, it's just a unique QR code you will use instead of typing. Just scan the QR code with your camera and that's it. Access it so you can transfer money or pay online. It's a case of cell phone theft. That's why it's best to just put this microchip in your body. There are many conspiracy theories here. This chip is related to 666. But it is not explained that it is connected to the mark of the beast. How it connects to the New World Order. That world banking system. Again, according to the book World Dictator page 257, that there is a supercomputer in Belgium whose name is really Beast, as in beast really. It says here the supercomputer is called the Beast. Next page of 258, Brussels Electronic Accounting Surveillance. And this supercomputer has 14 terminals system. There is a whistleblower. He is the world's most prominent robotic expert. According to him, this supercomputer, the Beast's server, will be used worldwide. This is the very server of the World Bank that will be used when we have one world online money. He has a reveal that this supercomputer is a partner of his company regarding the setup of the global bank system that is based on the FDIC banks around the world on the supergiant supercomputer in Europe. Which is that Beast? It is currently used in Europe as their computer server. Located in Belgium. He said, "I'll just sleep. If you have a debit card now, put it in any bank teller machine in the world. This is connected, it is connected to the supercomputer in Europe. And the first digit to activate your card is 666. And if you notice on the pages that this connects to the biochip topic. In other words, when the biochip is implemented for each transaction, it accesses the supercomputer Europe, which is 666. So technically, if your biochip is in your body, you virtually have a mark on your body which is 666. If we read again the Bible in Revelation chapter 13 verse 17, and no one can sell or buy unless they have the mark of the name of the beast or the number corresponding to it. The question that says that number is equivalent to that. This book also revealed that in every database registered by every person it has 18 digits number. It says that your 18-digit number is now in the giant computer in Europe. Every person number in the world begins with the digit 666. This is the format number to every person in the world that always starts with 666. The number is International Code Data World Computer. The first 3 digits of each person in the world is 666. Meaning every bank-to-bank transaction, when you send money, when you receive it, always goes through the Super Beast computer in Europe first, and always it starts with 666. And without 666 you cannot access the online banking system. So you can't buy, and you can't buy if you don't have an implantable microchip in your body to access the online banking system. Whether this conspiracy is true is unknown. Of the United Nations, of the new economic order, of the World Bank, and these secret societies, that they are already writing in the history of the world what has already been written in Bible prophecy. Now, dear ones, in our study verse by verse, that is very biblical, that the Antichrist will die and rise again in middle of 7 years of tribulation. This is proof that he will imitate the true Christ, who also died and rose again. His will appear real picture that he is Satan who will rule the whole world in the next 3.5 years. His desecration of the temple became the reason why the whole world succumbed to the so-called Great Tribulation. And this is one curse after another that will happen to the whole world. And we will study these curses in the next episodes in this study. Watch episode 6, The Seven Seals.